Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool.
I was wondering, how did our tier list video do compared to the others? Any idea?
No.
Been paying attention?
No.
I have another one in mind, like a reverse one.
No.
It's like, how would... Like, you get rid of Sauron and all his orcs, and then you choose, like, villains and their armies from other media and see how they would do against the Fellowship.
In the armies of man?
Yeah, like which side...
Well, I mean, the Fellowship's kind of an underdog position. Like, you can compare it to a lot of other mediums.
But they made it through Sauron.
Yeah. I mean, his armies weren't all that big.
They're massive.
It's like, what, 5,000 orcs?
It's got, like, millions of orcs, I think. There's a lot of orcs.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Anywho, podcast. Alright. Podcast mode now?
Yep.
Well, I don't know if it's too early in the podcast to start right off with some Evil Corp, but...
Well, I just thought of something. So, one of my friends on Facebook posted this thing about how he's, like, playing D&D with his kids, and, like, they've named their characters, and, like, they have their character names, and, like, one of his friends underneath it posted, like, oh, what creative names? And I was thinking, like, they just have a lot of syllables and consonants in them. There's, like, nothing special about those names. Maybe there's special to people, but I was thinking, like, when you were talking about, like, I was making up that fantasy race, and I was trying to name it, and we were, like, trying to figure out a name that actually sounded good. And it's like, what is it about, like, some names sound good, and others just, like, that's just a garble, or that's just, like, sort of there. Like, what makes a name actually good? Like, is it having meaning?
Well, I think, first of all, it's one thing to critique a name in something you're paying for, and it's another thing to critique the name of children that are playing a game. I mean, if they want to call their character Korblagu, then they should go right ahead, I think.
I'm not critiquing the children, I'm critiquing the person who said, oh, that's so creative.
Right, but if they're all just having fun, like, whatever.
Yeah. But that was just a preface to leading to the thing of...
Yeah. And for me, I think a creative name sounds good, and that's what a lot of people go for with those names, like Tor Blau Kortan. They're trying to make it sound good.
Yeah.
But I think the second part is it has to feel like it. I think meaning is important, but not necessary. But I think it's not necessary. I might retract that later. But I think what's the most important thing is that it fits the world. Like, if they have a language with a lot of s and like v sounds, then the name should be something like Savashsis or something. But if they have a world where, like, this is the Crag Mountains and the corridor of caves, and this is my axe Crom, then you shouldn't name yourself Sava or something. But if it's like, here's the Sifavissa Hills and the Sirasa things, and this is my sword, then calling yourself, like, Savasia. So I think consistency is nice. I also think names that one of sounding good, like I said, is important. And one of my go-tos, I have a friend who writes, and he wrote a character whose name I thought was a little like I think what you're talking about. Yeah. A lot of apostrophes and just a lot of, like... And the apostrophes are fine. It's just a guttural stop, or guttural, sorry. And so it just means, like, it's one word, but there's still a pause in the word. So you can have, like, the Talanimas in... they're not called Flanimas, for example, in Malazan. But he had a name with some in a weird spot, and I said, so, how do you pronounce that? And he said, I don't know, just looks cool. And so I think, for me, I prefer it if the writer, at least, is able to say, oh, well, it's like this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why'd you choose that name? Well, a lot of neat sounds. Like, I think if you make up your own language, and it's something to do with that language, I think that's best. Like Malazan Book of the Fallen, the Tlanimas and the Talanimas, whenever they put an apostrophe, it means that it's a past tense word. So they are the past Tlanimas. They are the Talanimas, which I think is really cool. It's like a nonsense word for English or for any language on earth, but it has meaning within the universe, which I think is important.
I find I like names that they sound like the character. So like a fat guy could be like Baldrum.
Yeah.
Because it's like big and round, and like I don't know, like sort of going too far, like a skinny guy's name is Stick or something.
Or someone with spiky hair is named Kiki.
Sure. Is that what spiky hair is?
No. No, it's just Kiki is a very spiky word.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It's there's a psychological test. Do you have a pen?
I have a pencil.
Can I have a pencil then? No, I don't remember it exactly, but basically...
Like, Grom's a big guy, right? It's like, Grom.
What you do is you give the person, like, 2 shapes.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, one is Bobwa and one is Kiki. Name them.
So and Kiki would be the
one,
like, right.
For most people, not for everyone. And the shapes are, like, Kiki's a very spiky shape and Bobwa is, like, a blobby sort of shape.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, so I like names like that.
Yeah.
Like, it sort of set, like, the name gives a description to the character sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of personal preference, but I think people most quickly become attached to names that are well thought out or like rooted in human language or mythology or something.
Yeah,
like Lord of the Rings, for example. You think, wow, the first fantasy, huge original world, bunch of original races, but names like Gandalf are like Gandalf is from a dwarf.
Yeah.
Aragon was it was a country. I don't know if I doubt that's where he got it from.
No.
But it's probably from somewhere because he was a professor of etymology, so he knew what he was doing. There's more. I don't know, names like Bilbo and whatnot. They're made of normal sounds, I guess, like Bill and Bo.
Yeah.
And also, it's not like a BHA where it's like, how do I pronounce Baha? How do you want me to pronounce that?
Yeah.
And I think having a grounding of some sort or consistent rules is important as well. Like if you have like BHA, Ba, then whenever someone has a name that starts with B, it should probably be followed by an H or something to show that your world's consistent.
Unless they're from a different continent, and then...
Yeah. And, I don't know. It's probably just personal preference, but I definitely get what you're saying where... I think maybe the point is where your contention was that they were saying so creative, where it seemed like they were just like a bunch of...
That's not the contention. I was using that as a preface for the rest of it.
Yeah, but...
I was using it as a preface. I was just, like, they're just names you can come up with.
Now, I think you've contradicted yourself, so I'm having troubles continuing. Because you said it was just a point to springboard off of.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. Mm-hmm. And you interrupted me to say...
Well, no, you're saying I think your problem is I don't entirely have a problem with the names they chose.
And that's not what I said. I said your contention with the notion that it's creative is that a creative name... You see?
Okay, go on.
So I think your contention with the person saying this name is so creative is that the names seem to be thrown together rather than actually being creative. For a creative name would probably be something like, well, this is the Indian name for fire, or this, like his name, Spivaka, is cool because he is a flame mage and these are the sounds fire makes. And so in his order, they choose a bunch of fire sounds and put them together. Whereas if the name is just like, well, we mashed our keyboards and the structure of the letters look kind of neat, then I don't call that creative. Is that maybe...
Sure. So I was just defensive there because a lot of the times, what was it called, where you tell a story for your life to start an example or like to ask a question, right? What was that called?
Anecdote?
Yeah, so a lot of the times I use anecdotes and then you ignore the point I'm trying to make and you attack the anecdote that I use.
That's interesting you said that because I was trying to use the idea you're talking about rather than the story. And you interrupted me and attacked me for using it. So it might be projection you're experiencing. Because I wasn't attacking your story ever. I was trying to talk about the idea. And then you interrupted me And,
I'm saying it's happened before,
or you've perceived it to happen.
Yes.
Because I started off by saying, I don't think you should go after children for this.
Yeah.
But I wasn't attacking your story. In general, I was talking about the idea of criticizing children for creativity, using your story as a springboard for an idea, which is what I think I generally do. So, yeah. Anyways. Can we open the window? I mean, like the blinds?
Yeah.
Dark. Yes?
I'm just confused.
But what?
About everything you just said.
Okay, I'll try to... So every time I tried to talk about an idea based on your story, you were interrupting me.
Not every time, it's just...
Alright, at least twice. You were interrupting me to say, no, I want to talk about the idea, not the story. So you were speaking, to my mind at least, as if I was only focused on the story, which is what you were accusing me of doing. But you're the one that was focused on the story. I was trying to springboard from a story into an idea, and so your accusation is exactly what you were doing. Because you were trying to springboard from a story to an idea, and then when I tried to do it, you accused me of preventing you from springboarding from a story to an idea.
But you say, I don't think you should use children, felt like a attack, like you're saying your story's bad and you're a horrible person.
Right, but I was talking about an idea, not the story, which is what you're accusing me of preventing you from doing. I wasn't attacking you at all. I was talking about the idea of accusing children.
But that's something I did.
Okay, so let's say I told a story, right?
Yeah.
So this kid was running around with scissors, and I wondered where the morality of that, that don't run with scissors came from. Now, first of all, I don't think you should run around with scissors. Now, I think that it probably came because it's a very simple way to prevent injury. I was starting with a warning label, let's say, to say that even though I'm going to start criticizing the name choices, I don't think that you should criticize... I'm going to criticize the idea of name choice, but that doesn't mean I have anything against these children or their ideas. Because they're just playing a game and having fun, and if they're having fun, good for them.
Okay.
So I wanted to start by saying I have nothing against the children, but it's an interesting idea that their names I find wrong. So I'm going to talk about that idea. But I want to separate it from the children themselves, which I think are just having fun, and that's great. And I think they shouldn't have to stop and consider in their game what is like the Indo-European origins of these like consonants or phonemes, whatever's.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I know enough about language to really critique.
Yes. And what I heard was, you shouldn't talk about children like that.
Have you considered working for Channel 4 News? You know, like...
Well, see, it comes from you, though, being my older brother, so...
You're not very good at it, but I think with practice you could work for them.
No, it comes from you being my older brother, and you feel like you're always being, like, I don't know, like, browbeaten by your older brother, or,
right,
like,
so,
criticized. Like,
so, you know, it's funny how
your family... Like, you always feel more judgment from your family, especially from an older sibling, you feel a lot of judgment.
You know, it's funny how I'm almost being, like, condescending here in, like, your madness of, like, of accusing me of what you yourself are doing. But at the same time, like, half an hour ago, like, my arms are still hurt right now. It's been a great time. I think another couple weeks and I might be better, but man, it's hard. But anyways, our mom just like was talking to me and she's like, so I just looked up how you can renew your driver's license, and if you just go here and do this and go here and do this, and I'm like, but I already had that in my mind, you know, I'm gonna wait a couple weeks so it doesn't hurt, and I'm gonna do it, and I had a plan, and now I feel pressured to do it. I'm gonna force to hurt myself, and I won't heal as fast, and then I'm pressured, and she wants me to find a job, probably, and like get out of here, and so, oh no, and she's like, yeah, I just thought of it because I was just deleting all the stuff because I had to renew my driver's license, and I just wanted to like remember what I had to go through. But since that moment, I have been like really stressed out because I had like this. I was like, man, life's so like straightforward and easy. You just gotta like go with the flow, you know. I'm like looking at like YouTubers and stuff, and it's like, oh, I get to do that. That seems fun. And if it goes somewhere, goes somewhere. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's a job. The world is my oyster. There's opportunities everywhere. And now, the weird thing is, the moment I feel pressure and stress, like if someone tells me like, dude, you need to get the job right now. Actually, that might be fine. But the implicit feeling I get of like, it's kind of the backhanded, like, it's there. Basically, when I'm steeped in guilt, I go into like tunnel vision and I enjoy nothing and I can't do anything and I see no opportunities anywhere. So right now, I don't really feel like it's possible for me to get out of this trap I'm in. Like it's this trap being my unemployment and my unenjoyment of life and everything. And before that, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna, chill out, let myself heal. And so it's just this very offhanded remark by our mom, who I've told many times not to do that kind of thing. Oh my God. Because it stresses me out like crazy for some reason. and maybe I'm the problem. I mean, I am the problem in that situation, really. But I think I've also received a lot of, like, passive-aggressive stuff in my time. Like, I think you have as well, which is probably why both of us are so on edge about it.
Yeah.
But it's just funny to look at from the outside and be like, geez, I wasn't talking about that at all. Maybe, like, the lower you are on the totem pole, the worse, like...
Yeah, imagine how our dog feels.
Yeah.
It's like, we ask him, what are you doing? And he goes in anaphylactic shock.
But it's like, he's like, should I be doing something? Actually, he is kind of like that.
Yeah.
But, man, it's stressful. It's like, what do I do? I mean... And here I am accusing you of hating children, and you must just be like having a little breakdown, and you're like, I'm hating children, I'll never have a job relating to children, they're going to fire me.
Oh no, it's I just don't want to be accused of calling children stupid.
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
Yeah. Well then,
I'm
okay.
calling the person who called the names creative stupid.
So, to start again, it would be something along the lines of, right, so to start off, I don't think you think children are stupid. And I also don't think children should be...
Why do you even have the thing of I don't think... Just don't talk about... Just use the idea. Don't...
But then you don't get to see the full argument and you think I have a one-sided opinion on it.
So you're basically covering yourself so you don't want to like call children stupid.
No, I tend to look at things from a lot of different angles, as we've said before.
Yeah.
And you might call it fence sitting or something, but... Yeah. I think there's no point in making a decision without information. Like, if there is an urgent need for a decision, then I think you should work with what you have.
But you should gather as much information as possible if you're given time to.
Well, I think, like...
Or a good amount anyway, so you don't, like, accidentally sell yourself to, like, the mafia.
Yeah, or it's more like, why make a choice on something you have no understanding of? Like why would you stand behind it? Like, I want to explore an idea, not like just enact my opinion on it. I don't want to just be like, yes, I know the answer here, like, because I don't know the answer to anything. Like, the more you learn, the less you know. Like,
yeah,
because it's like every time I have a I think there's two kinds of facts, right, that you know. All right, there's the ones you're wrong about, and there's the ones that are subjective. There's nothing that is objectively true that you know. Like, I think you're wrong about everything except for those things which are subjective. Like your favorite color or something.
I disagree.
Because every time I think I understand an idea, I'll learn more about it, and then I'll be like, wow, that's just... Yeah, I really don't know what's going on.
This shirt is yellow.
What's yellow?
It's a color.
What are colors?
Hey, shut up. Anyone can do that and pretend to be clever, but it's really just playing a simple game and you're dumb.
No, my point is that the idea of color is subjective. It's just an axiom made up by humans to understand the world. It's a very useful one. But if you saw wavelengths differently, then that shirt could be multicolored, or it could be colorless, or it could just be the equivalent of superviolet or infrared.
Speaking of made up by humans, a lot of the time I hear time is a construct made up by people.
Yeah.
And I guess you could call that, but there's also like the space-time, that's what the universe bounces on, and like it's either is time something that's made up, or is everything that humans have a made-up concept then? Like, is everything a concept made up by humans? So is that statement, time is a concept made up by humans, useless because everything is? Or is it...
Wrong.
Yeah.
Or is it correct?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about physics, but I'm just going to take a random stab in the dark here and pretend I know what I'm talking about.
Well, like, you use time for a whole bunch of formulas, like acceleration, even movement. You have to apply time to almost everything.
Now, you could say that the flow of time is an illusion, and that might be true, because I think the math would still work out either way.
Yeah.
But the notion that things... Well, and the notion that things progress in an order, like, our perception through time could just be an illusion. Like, time could maybe go sideways, but our perception, it goes forwards, or right. Mm-hmm. We're going down, while the real time is just... Time is a bubble expanding out in every direction, and we're just following a tiny sliver of that.
Yeah.
Like an infinitesimally small line through this sphere. So I guess you could say that time is like a construct of like the tiny amount we see. But yeah, then everything is like a construct as well. I think like the thing is about what I said about subjective. I think your argument, like what color is my shirt, was a very good argument, because like math, for example, subjective, 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah. That's
not true. That's just what we've decided.
Yeah. But is what we've decided like good enough to be true?
Well, I don't think it's allow me to get a little objectivist here, but I don't think it has to be what we think is true. How about that?
Yeah.
Because it's how we've structured our entire world, and it works. So that is reality. And reality is only what you perceive anyways. So what you perceive is the truth. So to completely counteract my statement of knowledge, like, yes, you're right, your shirt is yellow objectively, because humans are the only things that matter, or animals on Earth are the only things that matter for our construct of the world.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think that will change at some point. Like, we will discover something that's like, no, that is made of molecules or something, and like there's no color at all or something, because it's just like, imagine if there's something. Well, it's just blind, I guess. Like, can't see electromagnetic radiation. That's just what we call blindness.
Yeah.
But it like perceives, who knows, radiation or something. And it's like, oh yes, your shirt has like the radiation of these objects, so like it's the cotton that matters or something. So if all humans were blind, would your shirt be yellow?
Is that basically the same question?
I think that's where I'm getting led right now.
Is that the same question of the tree falling in the forest? Is anyone here? If all humans are blind?
Yes, I think it is actually.
What color's your shirt?
Or is time a construct? If all humans experience time, is time real?
Well, I mean, going to the tree in the forest and even the shirt and using irradiation, we were asked this by our physics teacher: if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound?
Yeah.
And the one answer is it depends on the force it fell in. But also, when it falls, it's going to emit radiation.
Sound waves.
Yeah, throughout the whole universe. So it is emitting radiation. So technically, it's making a sound. But if there's no one to hear it, then like that'd be no one in the universe, basically.
Yeah. Well, here, okay, in Minecraft, let's say there's a mountain range 1,000 blocks to the north of your spawn point.
Yeah.
That you've never been to and never will. Does it exist?
In Minecraft, no, it doesn't.
So why does that exist in the universe? Like, there's this whole idea of the observer in physics, that the observation matters. And it's often misused, and I don't know how to not misuse it, so I don't want to go too deep into it.
As far as I understand, with the observer, basically for the tree to fall in the forest and not make a sound, nothing that could observe. Like, you'd have to eliminate all observation. It would still make the sound, but there'd be no one there to hear it. So there'd be no one there to observe it. So,
okay, how about this? You have a random number generator that is truly random. It's based.
Could you just let me continue my thought?
Oh, you stopped. Yes. Continue.
Yeah, but I pause all the time. Because the tree... It's basically... That question is asking, do things exist if they're not observed? the whole thing of like all humans should be extinct, and then we can't enjoy the Earth, right? So there's no point. Like we have to keep the Earth going. It's if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, is the tree real? Like it's not even that there's sound. Did the tree even fall? Like there's no one there. Like it's more going on like our observation is what makes things real, and I think the problem you're having with the physics with like observation is a very important part of physics, is because when things get really small, we can sort of see that this is where a divide in basically physics and quantum physics comes is something has to be observed for it to be real. And if so small, that's kind of hard to observe. If we don't observe it, then it actually isn't there. It's somewhere else being observed. Yes.
So I think how it is misused is the idea that observation creates things.
Yeah.
But I think instead, if a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around, has a tree fallen? And not because the tree doesn't exist, but because there is no tree. And what I mean by that is all that there is a bunch of moving molecules in an area. There is no tree. And if there is no tree, there is no sound, because sound is just, if all humans were deaf, sound doesn't exist. We can't see corpse-lack. We don't even know what it is. It's probably a terrible made-up word. But we can't see it, we don't know it, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So if we haven't named it, then the concept isn't real, and so does it exist? Like, if there's a dimension that you can see by rotating to your right in this dimension's framework, but we can't see it, like, that dimension's still there, I guess. But if nobody was in that dimension ever...
Yeah.
Or to go... Like, I had this idea of... So you have a deck of cards, right?
Yeah.
And you shuffle the deck of cards. The Ace of Spades, coolest card in the deck.
That's contentional, but go on.
What are the chances it's on the top of the deck of cards?
1 in 52.
Alright, now let's say you have X-ray vision.
Yeah.
And you can see through the... Superman X-ray vision, not real X-ray vision.
Yeah.
You can see through the cards. And you see that the top card is the Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
What is the chances that the Ace of Spades is on top of the deck?
It's 100%.
Right. Now let's say you take Superman out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
What are the chances it's on top of the deck?
Still 100%.
But let's say Superman was never in the room. Nobody ever observed it. Then it's 1 in 52, right? Because it was never determined. So observation determines probability.
Yeah.
So, of course, a deck of cards getting shuffled isn't truly random.
No.
But something like radiation decay is. So imagine you had like a piece of radioactive material and a little sensor that like measured if it decayed or not.
Yeah.
And then if it detects something, it turns red. If it doesn't detect something, it turns green. And you put it in a box.
You put a cat in the box.
Well, I think that is the whole... I wonder if that's actually the whole point of the thing, is to show how ridiculous the notion is of observation mattering.
Well, it's kind of ridiculous because we just don't know. It's like getting to the point of being in the air. Like we don't actually have an answer. It's like the I mean, we might get an answer eventually, but you know the whole problem of like never being able to shoot a turtle with an arrow.
Yeah.
Like they just couldn't think of it right.
Yeah, that's because I know the answer actually, because we humans do know the answer.
Yeah.
It's fairly straightforward. It's there's a 1 in 52 chance of any card being on top of the deck.
Yeah.
And so the universe is full of these fuzzy scenarios where there's just a probability curve, or in this case, a probability line of every outcome. And only by observing it do you collapse the waveform, which is what happens when you observe an atom or an electron.
Yeah.
An electron. Then you can see where it is. But it actually exists in that like probability spread out. So this is like can tie into like a multiverse theory, that there is this multiverse, and then every time you look, like you are suddenly have shunted yourself at the very least into a very specific universe. But that doesn't mean that everyone's in that universe, because everyone's like this sort of amorphous blob spreading out through space and time.
Yeah.
And you're just looking at a slice of them every time you collapse the probabilities. And it's happening over and over again in every dimension constantly. And it's like this weird, like, you know, like soap bubbles, like, and like big foaming, like...
Well, I used to have an idea...
but they're all like intertwined like sausages.
Which was the philosophy that you're the only person in the universe?
Solipsism?
Yeah, solipsism. So slightly related to solipsism, which is, let's say, like, It's almost even like Minecraft with like you're talking about the mountain. Like it's like so I'm in like my town, city. I know what's going on in it, and so that thing's real. But in India, India's not real. Like
Right.
it's not loaded, and then like I hear on the radio event about India, and suddenly that area of India loads in for the existence of that event.
Right. So
It was like from my observation, there's only so much of the world that's loaded in.
so here's the thing. I think you're actually right. But here's the thing. You can't. You actually know what's going on in India
Yeah.
because, well, let's say you're a person in India, right?
Yeah.
You flip over the top of the deck, Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
Now, Ace of Spades has a different amount of ink on it from every other card in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Different amount of black, white. It's different from every card in the deck in some way.
Yeah.
At the very least, the amount of black and white on it. That means that the light bounces differently off of that card.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that the heat is different in that area. Which means heat spreads differently from that area. Which means that someone in India could look at their headphones on their desk,
Yeah.
and with the right instrumentation and the ability to filter out the right information, determine what card you flipped over, like over here. So each bit of probability is, and that's what quantum entanglement is.
Yeah.
It's where you can determine what happened based on something else.
Yeah.
And everything in the universe is quantum entangled. It's just, you have to observe the one to see the other. I think, oh man, I lost it. But this is true, I just don't know enough to keep going. And I've forgotten most of it. But because of that, multiverse. I forget where I'm going with this.
Well, the thing with the quantum entanglement, you're saying you have to observe it. So if I send you a message which says like all right, so we have like quantum entangled pens, right?
Yeah.
And you're a light year away, and I write down, "Hello, Cameron. How are you?"
Yeah.
And your pen's like supposed to be quantum entangled, and so you send me a light speed message saying, "Hey, did you say hi, Cameron? How are you?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Yes, I did." And they're like, okay, the quantum entanglement worked. Like, that's basically how we...
Except it might not have.
Yeah. So I have to say, like, yeah, that's what I wrote.
Yeah. But even then, that might just be random noise.
Yeah.
And that's why text messages are kind of impressive, because they like send back and forth a bunch of times. They're like, okay, I think we have the message. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this random collection of microwaves said this.
Yeah.
But it could have been hit by a duck on the way, and they sent you something completely different.
Yeah, but the quantum entanglement, you have to check the other thing to make that one actually true.
Yeah. And probably a few times. But you can never be certain.
Yeah.
But it's more than... Like, it's true, it's just you're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. But it's like everything is based... probability based on something else. So you are the only person in the world... As long as you're not tied into other probabilities, but you're tied into the entire universe.
Yeah.
But when you...
So if you're by yourself in a perfect vacuum, you're the only person that exists.
But when you flip over the card, you collapse the probability of that card, which means... This is how quantum entanglement works, right? You have two decks that are quantum entangled, basically. Well, everything is in the universe.
Yeah.
Well, no, this isn't right. But basically, you flip over the card... And you've collapsed the probability. This is the only universe you live in now. The one with the Ace of Spades on top of the deck.
Yeah.
So you have collapsed the entire rest of the universe to follow this universe. It's like infinitely more small. Well, 51 times smaller. Whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so you've collapsed the thingy. But that means that... Can you hear that? It's just physicists crying. Because we butchered this theory. But there's still probabilities on everything else in the universe. So, like, you can keep collapsing elsewhere and elsewhere. And so you are alone at the center, connected to everything in this, like, phone. And this is the same idea I've been trying to convey the whole time, really. So I think but it's, like, just a different way of looking at it, which is, like, more physics supported.
Yeah.
But it's another... There's a question of... which I think is quite an interesting one. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before. And it seems kind of like similar to religion in its desperation. But the question is, can you die? And so the test for this goes, you have like a piece of plutonium or something next to
we've talked about it, but it's not really can you die, but yeah.
Well, it is, like next to a sensor.
Yeah.
And it randomly decays, and when it decays once, it turns on, like it completes the circuit. And when it decays again, it like separates the circuit.
Yeah.
And in that room is a nuke, and you have a button connected to the nuke. And so this piece of random radiation keeps disconnecting and reconnecting the nuke to your button. And so you just hit that button 1,000 times.
Yeah, we've talked about this then.
And yeah, if you survive, then you're probably immortal.
Yeah.
Or just really lucky.
Yeah, but it's almost like from your observation you can't die. So if we...
Like, so you're the only person that can know.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else might see you die because you collapsed the waveform and everyone was shunted to a different universe.
Yeah.
Well, 50% of people are shunted to a different universe. Then you press it again and 50% more were shunted to a different universe. And again and again and again. But because people exist in every dimension in all infinite possibility, in possible ways, there's still everyone left at the end. So there is one universe where everyone's like, hey, you lived.
Yeah.
But in every other universe, like in the 999 other universes, you're dead. And that's just like, so in like 1 in 1,000 universes, you've proven that you're invincible.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. But the thing is, that's only along that one dimension because there's also everything else going on at the same time. So only in one universe have you actually proven you're invincible if you succeed. Because like a bird might have been playing the same game with like its beak in the next room over, and so or like there's just so much going on that like there's only like one possible path to you being invincible, basically.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of funny, like you just hit it 1,000 times and then like the scientists cheer and you step out of the building and get hit by a bus. Just like, oh my God.
Well, one of you would get hit by a bus, a different one wouldn't.
Yeah, I wonder...
And so is the person you are right now the person who doesn't get hit by the bus.
And that doesn't mean... The thing about infinite universes doesn't mean anything's possible. But anything probable is possible, maybe. Is that... No, because like, you know an electron, right?
Yeah.
It's a waveform. But we know where the electron is. It's within a very small space.
Yeah.
It's just, we have no idea where within that space it is.
Yeah.
But so there's infinite possible positions for an electron, but it's still within it's like how there's an infinite possible numbers between 0 and 1.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's...
2 still bigger than 1, even though there's infinity between both of them.
But it's like, we've trapped infinity inside a tiny little space.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that the electron can be like up your nostril if it's over there. Like, it just can't be.
How infinite then is the multiverse?
Very.
But like, is the space between 1 and 2 bigger than the infinity of our multiverse?
Well, it's infinite, so it's the same, sort of, but not, because some infinities are bigger than others.
Yeah.
But because it's infinity, they're also the same size, because it's not a number.
Yeah, but is it a bigger infinity than the space between 1 and 2?
Well, it's is the amount of numbers between 1 and 2 larger than the amount of numbers between 2 and 3? Like, well, yes, because you can... No, between, how about 2 and 4? Yes, there's twice as many. Yeah. But also, it's the same amount because there's infinite amounts.
But one's a bigger infinity.
So this harkens back way to one of our early podcasts where I said that mathematician was wrong because there's bigger infinities. But at the same time, I guess he was right because infinity is just infinitely large. Like, I think the most mind-blowing concept of infinity is, let's say there's a hotel with infinite rooms.
Yeah.
But it just so happens that it's full. Yeah. There's a person in every single room. And so you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Okay. And then a tour bus pulls up to the hotel.
Yeah.
And the tour bus driver comes out and he goes to the concierge at the front desk and he says, hey, got a tour bus full of people. Can we stay here? And he's like, oh, sorry, it's full up. The tour bus guy's like, oh, man, there's infinite people on my bus. And they need a place to stay for the night. And the concierge is like, you know what? I think I can help you, actually. And then he goes onto the PA system and he's like, excuse me, everyone in your hotel room, can you go look at your room number and then go to the room that is twice your number? Thank you. And then he goes to the bus driver and he says, all right, just tell your people they can go into any odd-numbered room. And it's just like the most like...
No, just stop. Just go ahead. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But no, it's not even screaming. It makes sense. It's very logical. It's just really, really weird.
But that's where our mathematical axioms have taken us. And instead of just going, maybe we should start over with math, we're like, yeah. And the thing is, because...
And we go, yeah, because it makes sense. And so, like, our math system is made to make sense, right? Like, even if it's completely wrong to, like, the Zoctonian standard.
Yeah, it works because it works.
It's our math system. It's not a Zoctonian math system, even if they're 2 billion times more correct than us.
And the crazy thing is, I think, was it special numbers or something in math? I think it's special numbers are absolutely absurd, like the most ridiculous, useless concept ever. And there's like infinite different kinds of special numbers in special math. And you're like, okay, well, this is the most useless, like, area of math ever. And right now it is, basically. It's just useless. It's like, who invented this nonsense?
Yeah.
But there's other areas of math where stuff like imaginary numbers and even negative numbers and the concept of zero were just these useless, like, oh, wow, what a crazy idea. But now we're finding uses for them in physics or just in, like, real life. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of computer hardware developers now that are finding these concepts useful of probability and stuff that were at one point stupid and crazy.
Did I tell you? I told you a while back about my number that's between 9 and 10, but it's only between them one way, so it makes 9 the biggest number. So if you so if you take 10, right?
Yeah.
And you subtract it by 1, you get, I think, 9.
Right.
But if you add 1 to 9, then you get my imaginary number.
Well, your crazy number.
Yeah, my crazy number.
Yeah.
There we go. My crazy number.
They already used imaginary numbers.
Yeah, you get my crazy number. I think that's how... It was some way to make 9 the base number because, like, you just add 1 to 9 and then... Because, you want to max out calculator and you go, like, 9. Then you add a 1, it just, like, screws the whole system.
Right. So on one hand, I want to say your idea is stupid and will never be used and is just, like... You can't just make up random mathematical things. But on the other hand, someone might have already, like, done that and, like, found a way, so...
Well, no, it's just that I just had this idea. I want 9 to be bigger than 10.
Yeah. And this was your way of making it work, basically.
This might not be the way I figured it out at one point, but it's just this absolutely absurd, useless concept.
Yeah.
But there could be mathematical application.
Well, the thing about special math and about imaginary numbers is they didn't make up an axiom.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they just took math to its logical extreme and found... Okay, wait, what's the square root of a negative number? You can't have a square root of a negative number. So some brilliant guy came along and said, okay, so you can't have square root of negative 4, right? But you can have the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 equals the root of 2 times the root of 2. The square root of 4, the square root of 4 also equals the square root of 4 times the square root of 1, right? That's that's basic math.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, so the square root of negative 4 therefore equals the square root of 4 times the square root of negative 1. And everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that isn't complicated. Mm-hmm. That's just like, okay, that makes sense. It's like, okay, so the answer is 2 times the square root of negative 1. And it's like, okay, yeah, what's the square root of negative 1? And he's like, I. It's like, you solved it. Brilliant. And then if you find 2 i's, you can just multiply them together and you get 1. And then you can get rid of it. And the math just works. And it's a really clever little solution. And so imaginary numbers didn't break the system too badly.
So what does I equal?
Square root of negative 1.
So I like to eat pie. That's what the square root of negative 1 is on that? Okay.
Yeah. So it
seems kind of pointless, though.
It's actually quite useful. Because you can take like the square root of a negative number, and then you can simplify an equation, and you'll often find that there's another square root of a negative number in there. And then you can cancel them out, and then the equation works. And you can get a real answer for a nonsense equation.
Huh.
The other thing is, it's kind of weird, isn't it? This is actually unrelated. But what's the square root of 4?
2?
It's half right. Because there's actually 2 answers. Also, it's negative 2 is also an answer, right?
Yeah.
So that one isn't like entirely related. It's just kind of a weird one.
Well, one of the ones that really got me in math, right, is you I can't remember where it applies, but you like want to do some multiplication. And it's with when you have like 3 times x plus 2 or plus 1 over x plus 3 times whatever, and you're like having trouble doing it, and so you go over to the side and you multiply it by 1, and like by multiplying by 1 you can make the whole thing work.
Yeah.
And
so that's basically how I works. But also that's how like it started.
Yeah.
But they're finding uses for I. Like I is like if you have a formula that has like the square root of -3 in it,
yeah,
you can't really represent it on a graph properly. But if you rotate it 90 degrees, then you can.
Yeah.
Because you know how you can't have like
don't write it on that.
On your work.
Yeah.
You know how you can't have a graph where the line is above itself?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what like I looks like if you graph it, basically.
Okay.
Or not I, but like square roots of negative numbers.
It just sort of feels like cheating, like multiplying by 1 and then you make it work. It feels like you're just like you're.
That's my favorite part of math, is that sort of stuff.
I really like to explain it's kind of fun, but it also feels like cheating, where it's like you got a problem, right? Like you need to like hammer a nail into a board, right?
Yeah.
But it's not working or something. And so you just reach into the ether and pull out the solution, and you can hammer the nail.
You would
forward.
love in calculus. There's what's it called? Integration, where you have a formula like something like this. So it'll be like what is the integral, I think, of like some crazy complicated formula. Let's say like tan theta, like 3 tan theta squared to the power of x divided by cos, like the square root of cos theta as well. Sure, why not? Something like that.
Yeah.
For over the duration from 3 to 5. And I just made this up, so I don't know if this is a bad one, but let's say this is like impossible to do.
Yeah.
What you do to solve these equations is you go, okay, 3 tan theta squared equals u. So this is now u over, and this cos theta equals, let's say, b. No, you just say like, okay, so now we have u over square root of cos theta. And so that is equal to the same thing as like tan u theta or something. And we can solve that. That's easy. And then you're like, okay, and then you're like, hey, we solved it, and the answer is this. And then you're like, okay, now we have a bunch of u's. Well, what does u equal? It equals this thing over here. So we'll just... It's just like the dumbest... It's so funny. I love it.
It just feels like cheating.
It's because the order of... As long as you respect the order of operations, the order in which you operate on the equation doesn't matter.
It feels like pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Yeah. Though.
So to go back to that, what's the square root of 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it does. And I love that kind of math so much.
Well, I even use that in my Lego animation because that's the unit we covered.
Yeah.
And I was doing Lego animation on math. At one point, like, they're explaining a concept of math, and then they just defy physics because the concept, like, they pull themselves up by their own bootstraps and, like, hover away.
Well, that's the thing, right? So this, like, what's the square root of 4? It's 2,
yeah. But
it's also -2, right? So you're like, okay, well, that's a bit weird, but we almost always ignore that. We just say, well, the answer is 2.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, if you want to be correct, you have to say it is 2 and -2. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, fine. So that's a little mathematical quirk. Who cares? But then let's say you go into gravity.
Yeah.
And the attraction of gravity is equivalent to the distance between the objects squared.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, so the distance squared. So you're like, divided by the square root of something or something, let's say.
Yeah.
I forget. But you'd say, okay, so if I'm like 10 feet away from that object, then its pole is reduced, or I'm 9 feet away, then its pole is reduced by 3 or something. This is wrong, but I'm just making up some numbers right now.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so its pole is reduced by 3. There's real-world equations that use square roots, and I just can't think of one right now, basically. And then the mathematicians come along and say, and -3. And you go, well, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that they're right. Like, there is applications for that kind of thing. I don't remember what they are, but they exist. And I think that's actually where special numbers come in, or special numbers are a play off of those even further. But it's like, so these equations that require square roots in the real world, you're like, yeah, well, if Farmer Brown squares the size of his field or whatever, it's like, then he'll be left with 4, but he'll also be left with -4, and that's actually like a real world concept we can sort of...
Then you take out your herring and you slap the mathematician and tell him to bugger off.
But it's just kind of a... It's kind of neat how you can play around with math and then it's like, how would this work in the real world? And then you do it and you're like, wait, so you own land in like an alternate dimension or something? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I wish I had it at the top of my head so I could explain it better, but I think it's kind of fun anyways. But, so, I guess we can save the evil corp then for a different time, maybe.
Wrap it up there.
Well, I just wanted to finish with a final idea, maybe.
Sure.
Well, actually, I don't know. I can do it next time too, so we have something to talk about next time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in no rush.
All right, cool.
So we'll delete this bit so people don't go like, what was it? I need to know.
One person might go.
They're tuning. I must tune in next week.
Next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks. I must tune in a fortnight.
Yeah.
Next fortnight. Right. I mean, that was math, so that was fun. So we didn't end with like depressing philosophy. So that's a bit of a shame, but...
Okay, depressing philosophy.
All right.
All right, so let's say you die.
Yeah.
And there's nothing at all after it.
Right.
Right. So, and let's say you don't like you're like the whole raise and ending thing. It's like no, you're just like infinitely thin string going forward. And then you die and it's over. Or it's not even infinite. It's infinite, like a black hole speck, right? And it's just hurtling through space. And then you die and it winks out. You become nothing, right? And it's impossible to comprehend that nothingness. But some people believe that. So, like, what are they like? How can you believe that?
I don't know. I think I do sometimes. And when I comprehend the idea because it's an idea that you can sort of like keep out of your mind in a way and like kind of push to the side or even talk about but not really think about it. But sometimes you just like, you're sitting there and it hits you and you're just like, it's like the most terrifying feeling in the world. And it's like death is something people talk about a lot and they're like, remember you will die and all this, and it makes some people uncomfortable and it makes other people like, yeah, and then I'll go to heaven, or it just like, there's all sorts of reactions. But I think a lot of the time when you talk about death, you're not really comprehending the notion of it. And when you actually like think about like nothing, like you can't even comprehend the nothing, but you can comprehend the notion of thinking about it. And when you do, it's just like you're staring at an abyss and you're falling through it, and it's like the most terrifying feeling ever. And I think the way people like that, like me, at least comprehend with that sort of thing, is your mind doesn't let you dwell on it because it's too scary. It's just like, oh, that drawer goes closed.
But I can't even open that drawer.
And like, I think that's...
I literally cannot comprehend oblivion.
Yeah, and it's... And I think
I can't even comprehend comprehending, like, or even like think of a way to make it work. Like, as like you know, like you're in like there's an orb, right? And you can't like open it. Like your fingers just slide around it. Like you can't even feel the cracks. Like maybe like some people can feel the cracks. I can't even feel the cracks. My hands slide around this orb.
Like let's say 5 minutes ago you were teleported away to a fairground and you rode around on the best roller coaster of your life, and then you're teleported back. And you don't have any memory of the event whatsoever. There's no imprint on your brain. Your brain was restored to the point before you were brought on that ride.
Yeah.
And like all the ripples in space and time, like time stopped for this to happen. You were like, all your cells are restored to the first state. So there's no aging, there's nothing to indicate you were there.
Yeah.
Because time stopped, all your cells were reverted. Yeah. But you were on that best roller coaster of your life.
Yeah.
Did it happen?
No.
And did it? And so that's kind of like life. It's like, it's over. You won't remember you. No one else will.
It's just... Anyhow, so yeah, we'll leave it there.
It's pretty,